Some changes don't ask for your permission. They show up, flip the table, and expect you to figure it out while the world keeps watching. Karen didn't fall apart. She adapted. When a public accusation connected to her ex-husband rewrote her life overnight, there was no pause button. There were kids to protect, decisions to make, a future to rebuild without a roadmap. She had to navigate legal uncertainty, social judgment, and a complete shift in identity, all while showing up as a steady parent and a functioning human being. Welcome to No One is Normal, the podcast where real stories remind us that none of us are alone. You can also visit the website www.bradhhill.com or www.nooneisnormal.co for resources, updates, and future podcast episodes. I am Brad H. Hill, and each week we talk about the messy, the complicated, and the deeply human moments that shape us and remain in our memories. I am not here to tell anyone how to live. I am here to offer the stories, the insights that made me realize that no one is normal, including me, because healing starts when self-honesty begins. Well, good afternoon, Karen. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, by far. Thank you.
So I think I want to kind of talk about a section of my book that is, it says relationships are hard work, right? You have to put in the emotional labor, and most people don't want to do that. You kind of had something that really threw a wrench in that whole situation. Your family became public overnight, and your family was shattered by something you did not create. How did that instantly change your life?
I instantly didn't even know who I was, my identity. I felt broken. I felt lost. I was in denial. I mean, a week prior to it going on the news, my ex now, he called me on his way home from work because we worked at the same school, but I always left a little early to go get the kids from school. And he called me and I couldn't even understand anything he was saying. It was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, his mom must have died. Like, I couldn't even understand why he would be so upset. And then he was like, no, he finally got out of him that no, his mom didn't die. And I was like, oh, okay, who's the next oldest? And I was like, okay, his uncle, I guess, died. And he's like, no. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you dying? Are you having a heart attack? Like, I couldn't figure out what's going on. He said, no. And he said, these detectives came to the school. But I still didn't know what was going on. So, like, he said that this girl from 19 years prior was accusing him of sexual assault. And I knew who the girl was. He said the girl's name, and I was like, I immediately just went numb. And my son had an orchestra concert that night. I was the Booster Club president for orchestra, and I went up on that stage. I couldn't tell you what I said. I couldn't tell you what music was played. The police had to escort my ex in to watch the concert and or escort him out. Like, immediately, he was not allowed. But the kids, no one knew what was going on, and I'm hoping this will just like go away. I'm like, what is this? And he couldn't come to work, and like the only people who knew at work was the principal because of HR and me. And I just remember how numb I felt. I couldn't believe this was happening. But then when it hit the news, or when he got arrested, and then it hit the news, and all of a sudden everybody knew. And what I've been trying to hide for a few days, which was hard enough, everybody knew. And I was so upset because it wasn't even upsetness of what he did. It was the image of my perfection. My veneer of perfection was shattered. I felt like, oh my gosh. And I remember I wrote it in my journal how upset I was because people would not think we were perfect anymore. And I didn't know how to handle that because I wanted everything to be so perfect in my life. I wanted us to be known as this perfect family with my ex and I. We worked at the same school, we volunteered at the school, we taught Sunday school at the church. Like, we were such a big part of the community by far. For years, we were just known as this power couple, and it was shattered. And I really didn't even know how to handle it. I felt like I even went more numb. I just wanted to be in bed all the time. I just couldn't stop crying. I felt lost. And So that happened on a Wednesday, and on Sunday, people were bringing us food, and I was like, "Why are you bringing us food? Like groceries, not like meals to eat right then, like groceries." And I'm like, "Why are you doing that?" And they're like, "Well, you do understand, like you have one income now. Like the reality still had not sunk in that I am truly a single mom with one income." And I had two boys, sixth and eighth graders, so 11 and 13 years old. And you just go in such denial, like this really couldn't be happening. And it took people like pointing out things to me that this really is happening. And then when the bills came in, and then when the school, we worked at a high school, so they created this Instagram account about my ex. And then my son, who was in my ex-husband's class I mean, we had to switch him schools because he was getting harassed and teased about what his father was being accused of. And I never felt so broken and lost ever in my life and not know what to do. And I am a planner and I like to know what's going on every day. And now I was just lost.
Yeah, that's got to be really hard too, because it's not just something maybe a few people would know. It happened in public, and you really can't hide from it, and there's really no escape. So you can't even really vent to anybody about it. I mean, even though they know, it's like, well, do I talk about it? And I mean, that had to have been hard for you.
Well, especially since it was a criminal case and like they said you couldn't go to counseling, like whatever you say to other people, they could be called to court. So then all of a sudden people didn't even want to talk to us because they're like, well, we could be called to court, so we just don't want to get involved. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I had this big group of friends. We're coming up on the holidays, and then I felt just kind of abandoned because no one wanted to get too involved with the criminal case.
So not only was this happening, but you kind of got everybody segregated from you. So you actually didn't really have anybody you could confide in at all, and you had to kind of go through this and with your kids and kind of your ex at the time. I mean, it was probably a traumatic experience all the way from beginning to end.
Absolutely. I mean, I had my family, and it wasn't even public just to Texas and this community. But my brother who lived in Virginia, he called me the next morning. He goes, Karen, I just saw the news because I didn't talk to him that night that it was on our news. And anyways, he saw it on his news and he goes, this is nationwide. He goes, this is, here. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like that just broke me even more that you talk about public, you are public. And I was like, I wish you would have I'd rather him had an affair. At least we could have kept it private or, some addiction or something that we could have just kind of hid between the walls, for as long as we could. But it was just out there. I mean, there's nothing we could do.
Yeah, that is probably one of the hard things. Like how, I mean, moving your kids was tough. I mean, but how did your children process this? I mean, how did they get through the day? And I mean, have they kind of recovered from it? Are they doing okay now, or are they still having a little bit of a struggle with it?
My oldest, who was in my ex's classroom as a student, he did not do well at all because we had to move him to another school. We moved him for 4 months, but he really missed his friends because he's been with these friends since kindergarten. And so we had to move him to get away from the harassment and the things he was hearing about his father. But then we moved him back, but then the groups changed because, that age group, they change friend groups and whoever's right there. So then he was an outsider pretty much after that. He ended up running away his senior year and making some really bad choices. He really looked at his dad as a hero. Like they were like really, really close. And he struggled of how to deal with it because he wanted to support his dad and love his dad. But then he has his peers who are saying these horrible things and he was old enough to be on social media and they were just ripping my ex, and unfortunately my son saw a bunch of that stuff too. So he still struggles. He ended up moving away from both of us. He didn't talk to his dad for a couple of years. He's slowly building a relationship with him, but at a distance. And he won't even call him dad. He calls him by his first name only. The youngest doesn't want anything to do with his dad, and he calls him only first name only. He did better school wise because he was still in elementary. So those parents were more protective, and those kids were not into social media. And he just had good friends with parents who didn't talk about it with their kids and, putting it out on my son. So he's doing much better than the oldest. The oldest, it was, I mean, it pretty much almost ruined his life. um, Literally.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, that's got to be hard for anybody, like especially you living through it, and then your kids having to deal with how how tough kids can be, and they might not know the story and just can be ruthless. So I mean, that's got to be very hard for the whole family.
Yes. Oh, and the other thing that was hard, I guess for my youngest, what was hard is that other parents didn't want their kids staying at our house anymore.
Hmm.
And he used to have like sleepovers and people over all the time. So that was an adjustment for him.
I moved around a lot, so it was kind of you get to kind of know people, and it takes a little bit to get trust, and then you kind of got to build that. And I mean, I understand it had to have been tough for them. Um, you kind of talked about like busy happiness in your bio. Can you explain that a little bit?
So to ignore the real problem, because at the time, so my ex moved out. He got bailed, did bail from bail bonds, whatever, bailed out of jail. I don't even know what it's called. Like we pay bail. And
Right. It was
sorry.
it was released on bail. Yeah.
Released on bail. I was like, why can I not think of this? um, so, he was at the house and I filed for divorce because his anger just got worse and worse and it got very emotionally abusive. He wasn't physically abusive to us, but emotionally abusive he was because we still had our lives, and especially being at the school. And he couldn't, the school that he worked at and our son was at, and he couldn't really be involved as much. He was very limited to come on the property of the schools unless it was for a school event. So he was removed from our everyday life. And so he felt very separated. He did not have a job. It took him a long time to get a job. Actually, it took COVID with them stop doing background checks for him to get a job. And as soon as background checks came back, he got released. He got terminated, which really sparked getting the divorce. But going back, so it would happen in 2018. I filed for divorce in 2019. He moved out, but my oldest, who looked at him as a hero, moved out with him because he felt such a struggle and a tug. And my oldest just wears his heart on his sleeve. And so he just didn't want his dad hurting and being alone. So he went with him. But that son was at school with me and he came to my office and he said, I mean, like a few months later, he came to my office and he said, can I come home? And he goes, I really need you. I need structure. I need discipline. And I was like, absolutely. Of course I want you home. And he goes, well, dad has to come too. And I was like, oh. But and Kaden was struggling so much emotionally in his grades. And like now he's a freshman in high school. And I wanted what was best for him. And so I was like, okay, I don't want you to drop out of high school or, things go really south for you because of this change. Like he would not be able to handle the divorce. So I said, okay, move back in. He moved back in on February 29th. It was leap year of 2020. Well, COVID happened a couple of weeks later. Like, and all of a sudden we went from not living with each other to now we're all together all the time. And that was a huge struggle. And him not having anything, feeling purposeful, because he got cut out of everything with church and scouts and work. And he didn't have any purpose, and so he would just be really angry at us. Just things were so unhappy at home. I guess my point was that things were so unhappy. I would just fill my time volunteering for everything I possibly could. I mean, I took on every extra job duty, but then COVID hit, so now I'm home. So then I just started walking like 5 to 7 miles a night. Like I
Hmm.
literally just left and just would walk around just to avoid the home there. So I don't really count that as busy happiness, that part. That part was because I had no other thing I could do. But when I was at work before COVID and after COVID, And after the divorce, even, and even when I got another job, I just volunteered for everything. I mean, I was painting the parking lots at the school. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you need someone to paint? I'll paint. Like, there was stuff in different departments. I mean, I was like, oh, I could do that. I could do that. Like everything. And then it just came like, oh, well, Karen will do it. Karen will do it. And it was because I just wanted to stay so busy so I looked fine, because it wasn't that I wasn't functioning, I just wasn't feeling anymore. And I just was just put on this performance every day that everything's fine. I used to live in the world of everything was perfect, but now everybody knows it's not perfect. So now everything's fine. Now we're
Right.
fine. And I'm going to make sure everybody does not question that if, is Karen okay? Because it just looks like Karen's okay. She's got it all together. And that was the image I was trying to give to everybody, but I was really drowning inside. I was broken, as more broken than even imaginable inside. I would go home and I'd be depressed. I would look at, Facebook and see, and I know Facebook is so fake because I
Mm-hmm.
I would say that was my part of my veneer of perfection. Before the case, we would post these pictures and there's a fight behind each one of them. I mean, I will look back to them now. I'm like, oh, I remember that argument. I remember that argument, but we're all smiling and we look great and we look like this happy family. But I just didn't want anybody to have the image that I wasn't doing fine. I was ignoring the real problem. What was really happening. I was ignoring the healing. And you know what? Doing that when you're just busy happiness, you're just ignoring healing. You're just
Mm-hmm.
functioning. You're not feeling. You're not healing. You're ignoring it. You're going around the storm. I would say there was this huge storm that happened, and I could have just gone straight through the storm and started rebuilding and be like, okay, that sucked. That sucked. Okay, but we're gonna fix this. This is what we need to do. We need to make a plan. But instead, I just wanted to take the long route around the storm. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sucks over there. Well, I don't want to be over there. That's where I
Right.
needed to be to get rid of the freaking storm.
Well, that's the hard thing is a lot of people don't want to process what's happening. So they do everything they can to keep their mind busy so they don't even have to think about it. I've done it for years. I've always been a kind of a workaholic, work a job and then I went to school for 10 years, right? Well, I was working full time and then wrote a book while working full time. Now I'm doing a podcast while I'm working full time. So you know, I've kind of got that mentality where I'm trying to keep my mind busy. I don't know why. I just am that type of person, and I mean that for you that had to have been pretty difficult because it seemed like you're the kind of the type of a go-getter too. So you had to keep your mind busy, but you also had to kind of figure out your happiness.
Yeah. And like I said, that was such fake, busy happiness. And it took me 6 years to realize, oh my gosh, am I doing? Well, I've lost 6 years with my kids, and that was the biggest thing. My youngest was graduating, and I felt like I didn't like from the case when he was in sixth grade to senior year. I mean, luckily, I was a big part of his life because I worked at the school that he went to, so I was involved school wise.
Hmm.
But honestly, outside of school, it was like I didn't even know him because I was working still while he was at home or on my computer. I always had a computer with me, like felt like it was either the phone or the computer. They were attached to me, like they're supposed to always be there, and I didn't know what to do if they weren't because the Apple Watch, I stopped wearing an Apple Watch last fall because I realized my whole life revolved around if somebody was calling or texting, and I was like, what do they need? What do they need? And I was like, I do nothing for myself. And as Kyle was going through his senior year, I realized I'm going to be alone. I'm just going to serve everybody else while they go home to their families or host their parties or build relationships and have this group of friends. And I have nobody. I mean, I had people, but not close friends anymore because they were all married. I'm the single person now, and it's just different. You don't fit in anymore all of a sudden with those groups, what your identity was.
Hmm.
And so then it took seeing Kyle going, him growing up in his senior year, and I was like, I don't want to be alone. Like after he graduates, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to answer to everybody else and just die at my desk at age 50. And so I started going to some activities at a singles group at church, which my mom told me I should go, numerous times. And I was like, oh no. And I really just started building a life for myself. So then I was like, oh, I'm going to start working out and I'm going to start intentionally doing stuff for myself and not wearing an Apple Watch, not being at everybody's beck and call. I'm still going to help everybody, but I'm not going to say yes to everything anymore until I know I'm being taken care of first. Because that's what a lot of people through this, they just don't take care of themselves. When they're going through a storm, when the trials are coming and hitting left and right, it's like, oh, well, I'll ignore myself. I'm going to serve others because then I look like I'm purposeful and valued and loved and needed when I'm not even going to be here long enough to fulfill everybody. It's like that oxygen mask in the plane. You got to put it on yourself first because you're going to be dead before you can serve everybody. You're just going to, and I was dying of exhaustion. I was dying of poor health. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Because I was working two jobs as well as at the
Hmm.
school and at the stadium working and volunteering for all these things in between.
Well, you were also just a single mother at that time too, right? And you're trying to make ends meet with kids, so it's very difficult. My mom did it for many years, and I give her a lot of credit for the sacrifices she made. A lot of things she did and didn't do were because of me, it can be really appreciated, kind of what like I've been through and what my mom's been through to kind of say, well, I grew up and became something better than what I could have, right? Um,
Hmm.
and I'm kind of babbling right now, sorry.
No, I
Um,
love it. I love it.
but I think that's kind of the thing that, you know, as your kids get older, they're gonna look back and look at how much you've done to kind of help them through the toughest time probably of their life, you know?
I hope so. Because sometimes, I don't know. They're 18 and 21 and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like they blame me for the divorce. It's like, could I just not put up with it? And it was really they were going to be out. I'm the one who's going to be there. They wanted
Hmm.
the divorce. It was my oldest, his senior year, said, "Oh, I know I wanted you to, stay until I graduated, stay with dad until I graduated, but it's either him or me." Like right when he turned 18, he goes, "It's either him or me." I'm like, are you kidding me? I was waiting for you this whole time. So
Hmm.
then I got a divorce, and then exactly what I thought would have happened freshman year happened then. He was like, oh, hold on, I really can't handle this because it put more responsibility on him because I was working the two jobs.
Hmm.
And I said, well, someone's going to have to help, with the leaves or the yard, or like he didn't realize how much dad did around the house. He did, I mean, he did help, with those things. Not my oldest, but my ex. And my oldest was like, peace out. Like, I'm done with this. And he just left and moved in with another family at the end of his senior year. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Well, everybody processes things at their own pace, so it
Yeah.
might take a little bit of time, and then eventually, you know, he may kind of come to terms and say, okay, she did the best she could with what she had.
Hmm.
Um, so, like now with your rebuilding, what are some non-negotiables for boundaries that you're going to be setting for yourself moving forward? Because this just happened, right? And you're
Yes.
married and happy, and all of a sudden, left field train wreck, and then you're like, now what? So how has this helped you to kind of look at when you're starting over the type of boundaries that are non-negotiable?
Non-negotiable now for me is if it's going to be something that is not, and it sounds kind of bad, like something that doesn't help me, then I don't do it.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I will volunteer, like, if the church needs me or, if a friend asks me to help or whatever, but I'm not just signing up for anything and everything to stay busy anymore because I'm feeling busy. I'm feeling like FILLING. It sounds like I'm
Hmm.
feeling busy time now with time that is going to help me become a better, stronger person. And not just physically, it is working out, but if it's meditating, if it's reading, if it's listening to podcasts and listening to other people's stories. And the biggest thing is realizing you're not alone.
Hmm.
Right after the case happened, how I was talking about that image of perfection, that I was
Yep.
more upset that it broke. So many people from the community called me or texted me. One lady, I remember she came over. This was a couple of weeks after the arrest or the on the news, and she told me everything that was going on in their house. And I thought they had a perfect family. And like then everybody's like, "Oh no, this is what's going on in our house." And like I learned like all these people had trials and nobody was perfect. And I think it helped them be able to open up and be honest and vulnerable about what was really going on in their life. Like, oh, here's someone we know her life's not perfect anymore. Now we have someone to share this with. And the more, like your podcast is a great platform for people to hear you're not alone because I needed to hear that. I needed those people to come over and tell me that because I thought I was just this the black sheep of the community all of a sudden. But really, we all have our issues. Mine was just public.
The thing is it's not anything you did.
Yeah.
You know, so that's another aspect of that is you kind of, I think I mentioned the love and death to you when we talked prior. That one, it's a show that has, I'm not going to do any spoilers, but there's a husband who's supporting somebody who's going through this trial and he's doing the best he can. And you're kind of in that role and you didn't do anything in this process and you're paying consequences for something that potentially was done by him almost 20 years ago. So you just all of a sudden, well, here it is, and now I got to deal with it. I mean, that had to have been probably the hardest thing, just out of nowhere.
I think that's still something I still struggle with dealing with. It brings some anger out of me, and sometimes because after the news hit and my mom found out, everything, like I didn't even know all the details of what he was being accused of until the news report. And I was like, oh my gosh, but my mom, she goes, Karen, out of all the people on this planet, for this to happen to you, because ever since I was a little girl, I just wanted everything to be so perfect
Hmm.
and everything to look so ideal, organized, and just what people would be like, oh my gosh, look at that, or I want to be that, and she's like, out of all the people for your life to be this, not, I mean, obviously not perfect. My life wasn't perfect before, but to be, I just, I would have never imagined that now here I am at 47, restarting, saving for a home again, just being single, financially trying to get back where I used to be. It's just, I feel like I'm starting over, like I just graduated college and it's like, all right, let's pay off the student loans and save up to buy a house and let's find a husband. I mean,
Right.
it's just like, starting all over. I could have never, I would never 10 years ago, if you would have said this would have been my life, I would have been like, no, mm-mm. My house will be paid off. I'll be traveling. My kids will be happy. We'll be this great family, like taking these trips together. Like, I would have never seen this coming.
Yeah. Like when you think about the image of perfection, how exhausting is it trying to achieve that?
It is so exhausting. I mean, I was kind of relieved afterwards for sure. I was like, well, everybody knows my life's not perfect. So now I'm just going to be real.
Right.
And I think, I mean, it made me happier in that sense because I could just be authentically, authentic with people and not worry what they thought as much. I mean, if I could go back and tell my younger self something, I would say, don't base any of your decisions of what you think other people are going to say or do or
Hmm.
what they want you to do. You got to do what you want to do and what makes you happy because these people, they come and go. And I feel like I based a lot of choices off what I was worried what others would think or say. And throughout my life, even up till when the case happened. And after that, I was like, well, I what else could they think worse of me? Like, and even
Right.
though it wasn't me, but I was associated with that. Like I felt like I was, I mean, I had no I didn't even know my ex at the time that this thing allegedly happened. So I had no part of it, but I felt like I was associated, like, well, people associated with me because he was still at the house.
Like you're almost guilty by association, right?
Yes.
So just because something happened to him, you're the pariah too. You know, it's like why is what he did kind of affecting me? But it's just how people are. They're just gonna be like, well, they're together, so it's gonna be both of their things, and it's just kind of it can be frustrating when you're not even doing anything about it. That it's it's not even you, and everybody else is taking it out on you as well.
Yeah, or my kids, not
Hmm.
letting their friends come over and all that, not be invited to things anymore. And it's like, Yeah, it just totally sucked. But
I couldn't imagine. It's difficult enough to just do the day to day, and like no matter what you do, there's always something that happens that it seems like, oh, these guys just won't leave me alone for something that was said and done a while back. And I don't know, it's people can be mean sometimes, and I'm glad that you're kind of getting to that point where it's not quite as uh, like cutting glass, right?
hmm And the people who I learned were mean or saying things about me or, keeping the story alive for so long in the community were the ones who had the worst issues at home. I think they just liked that there was somebody else they can point out why they hid their own issues, personal issues. And it was like, look over there, don't look here where there's real problems. I'm like, oh, whatever.
It, it's amazing how people do that. People will definitely say, "Hey, look over there," and in the meantime, their world's falling apart, and they're like, well, but look over there. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's
Uh-huh.
crazy. I get a lot of that when I talk with people, and it's amazing how many people will try to throw your situation and make it just public knowledge, and then be like, mine's not that bad now. Well,
Yeah.
it's not how that
People
works.
say and do things to make themselves feel better all the time. And I'm like, if you talking about me helps you, I mean, at that point, I didn't care. I was like, you do you. My only purpose right now is to stay afloat financially and make sure my two boys emotionally feel stable, secure, have consistency in their life as much as possible after everything else has been taken away. And so that's why I stayed in the same house, even though I couldn't afford it, but I just didn't want them to have to move. I didn't want any more change than they already had, with not having the usual life that we, had.
What people think about me is none of my concern, right? Because it doesn't bring any value to my life to think about what somebody says in a negative aspect. There's going to be people that like me and people that hate me, and I can't control that, nor do I
hmm
let it live in my head rent free. How has that been for you? Have you been able to get through this a lot easier now that you're kind of like, well, screw you, I'm fine, you know?
It makes life so much easier when you don't worry what other people think. And if they don't like you, they don't like you. If they love you, they like you or love you, whatever, great. If I bring value to someone, wonderful. If they just hate me because I'm standing there or, or my story or don't want to be around me, I don't have time for that anymore. Like my priorities have totally changed in my life, what I thought was so important. And really, is a blessing. I mean, the trial is not a fun thing. Everything that happened was not fun, but in a lot of ways, it was a blessing. I feel like I did find my true self. I got to be more authentic and free. Freedom. I felt like freedom, and not freedom because I'm not married anymore. It's freedom of having to perform all the time. I mean, I felt like I performed before the case. I felt like I was performing this last 6 years of being fine. I mean, I was like, gosh, I could be actress of the year at this point because
Hmm.
I'm always performing. And last year, at the end of or beginning of 2025, when my youngest is about to graduate, and I'm seeing the end of the road that he is leaving. He has accepted a college that is 600 miles away from me, and I'm going to be by myself and stop performing, and just live life that's going to help me, something that's going to benefit me and start healing, just start healing. I mean, I felt like I just kept putting band-aids on every day. It's like, here's a band-aid, here's a band-aid. The wound is still wide open, it's gushing blood. Here, maybe we need a little bit more gauze this day, but it's like it is time to sew up this wound. There's going to be scars, and that's where I get into a lot of the acute trauma and the chronic trauma. I've studied on that now. It's like, do I want acute trauma? Do people want acute trauma? Which, yes, there's the storm, but are we going to go right through it? Have it small trauma, and not small as in what happened. What happened wasn't small, and you're going to have a scar. It's going to be painful here and there, but do you just want to get through and start rebuilding? And be like, well, this was my life. And either I can be sad that it's not my life anymore, or I can hold on to it and try to make it my life, or I can, stop being in denial and be like, that's not my life anymore. So it's time to rebuild. it took me 6 years to figure that out. And I don't want other people to do that because I lived in chronic trauma, which is where you do fill yourself with busy happiness to look fine, you're performing, you're functioning, you're not feeling, you're not healing. You're just literally functioning in this world where you wake up every day and say, is it time to go back to bed? And that's where I was. I'm like, all right, let's wake up. Is it bedtime yet?
Yep, another
And now
day.
I wake, now I wake up and I'm like, great, I have all these things to do, but they're things that are going to help me and be intentional to bring fulfillment in my life, fulfillment for my kids, fulfillment for the people who matter most to me, and not doing all this stuff for all these people who I don't even know their names. Like half of them I didn't even know their names. It's like, oh, okay, I'll just do it. I'll just do it.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I truly feel like I adapted, I survived, and then I had to unlearn how to survive so I could heal. Like I went through these stages.
Yeah, I definitely think that, you know, some people deal with things, some people don't. And I think the people who deal with things kind of head on, you get through it a little bit quicker. If you just kind of go around the storm, you just kind of keep getting hit by the lightning on the outside. You can go through the storm and get past it, but you're just kind of circling the storm and it's just getting you from the outside. And, that's kind of what I started to do as well, is it's not to sit there and just beat around the bush. I try to, okay, let's address the issue, fix it, and move on.
Yeah, I did not want to address it. I was like, and especially with my ex and I working at the same school. I mean, we literally like taught next door to each other, and he was geometry and pre-cal, and I was algebra one, algebra two. So the kids just like went back and forth between us through their years of math, their math career or high school. And so it was like they just knew us, and all of a sudden it was just broken, and having to go back to the school where all these kids who truly know our family. It's not
Hmm.
like, oh, Miss Peters' husband, that it's Mr. Peters. This is what happened to Mr. Peters. Like he had a name and identity at that school.
Right.
And so I'm coming back and that was really hard. And so I think that's why I just kept wanting to avoid the storm. I mean, I moved departments. I went from the math department down to the counseling department and
Hmm.
became a school counselor because I didn't want to be up where he was mostly his identity was. But it took 4 years for that group of kids who knew what was going on to cycle, who
Right.
knew him personally, to cycle out. So it was 4 years of hearing all the time, how's Mr. Peters? How's Mr. Peters doing? What's going on? What's going on with the case? What's going, just nosy bodies and then when things like this happen as well, which was really hard for me, is that I didn't know who really were my friends and who wasn't. Like I learned that there were people who just want to be like seem real, sympathetic with me or empathetic and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. Like, tell me what's, like, how can I help? Like, they want me to like spill the tea about everything that's going on so they can just go and spread it to their friends and be like, look what I know, look what I know. And then I found out who the sincere ones who, would cry with me and really, feel with me and share their stories with me. But man, you really learn people's true colors when something like that happens.
Taking a quick pause here. If this episode is resonating, I would love for you to follow the No One is Normal podcast on whatever platform you listen on. Every follow helps this show reach people who might need these stories. Now let's jump back in. Yeah, that is for sure. It's kind of like the coffee clutch, the pink hats, all the people that just want to know your dirt so that they can have something on you, so that their perfect prepness is not questioned. And it's like, well, if that's what you want to do and try to rub my name or myself through dirt, then well, I don't need to be around you.
Yeah. I was like, you're going to go out with your friends so you can talk about me because you don't want to talk about your own life? Okay.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I'm not a soap opera, so sorry.
but yeah, no, right now my non-negotiables is really making sure I do everything with intent, and purpose and not just something to fill time. It's fill time that will be meaningful. And that's what I want people to do. I really want them to question, are they taking care of themselves first before others, even their own kids? Are you taking care of yourself first? And blocking out that time, no matter what, and say,
Hmm.
no, this is going to be my time. It's non-negotiable, and not let people talk you into doing all these other things. Um, yeah, what's going to help you grow and heal and not hide and mask the healing anymore, mask the pain, get through it.
That's what a lot of people don't understand. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others because you're suffering, you're not doing well, you're not being healthy, you're not getting yourself to the point where you can actually help other people. You're just kind of, I'm surviving and living. And, you really got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you can kind of help take care of others.
Yeah, you can't go in survival mode and healing mode at the same time. It doesn't work. And like I said, it's just, I feel like I lost, there was a big cost to me of the number of years I lost not figuring that out. So now I want to find people right after their trauma happens and be like, okay, let's make a plan.
Hmm.
You know, it's going to hurt, you're going to grieve. It doesn't go away, but are you going to make it a scar or are you going to make it an amputation? What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's difficult because sometimes people just want to keep bringing it up too, even though they've resolved it internally. They just sometimes keep rehashing it, and really, it's the past. You really can't change it. It's there. It's something that happened. Um, so one of the things that's kind of weird is how did this public exposure kind of change your perception on grieving? I mean, how did you grieve when you're in such a public kind of eye? What helped you to kind of go through the grieving process?
I really honestly feel like I hid the grieving process for the 6 years. Like the
Really?
way I did it was just staying busy and not anybody seeing me sad or upset. I mean, it was really hard for the first couple of months. Don't get me wrong. Like I wanted to be in bed all the time, but I had an 11-year-old son, and one day he came in and he said, Mom, I need my mom again. Like, because I would go to work, I would function at work, everybody would see this, wonderful teacher performing and, just look so happy. And then I'd come home and crawl right back in bed. This is like right after it happened, the first couple of months. And so I wasn't there for my kids, but yeah, my 11-year-old goes, I need my mom. I need my mom. And I said, you know what? You do. You're right. You do. And so I put any more crying. Like I felt like I just stopped crying. I stopped grieving. Like I just like, nope, we're gonna put on this show and we're gonna be here for our kids, or I'm gonna be here for my kids 100%. Here I go. And I just didn't realize how much worse I was making it on myself. I should have finished the grieving and like, had some kind of balance between being in bed all the time. Um, but the grieving process now for me was when I actually did talk to someone about what happened earlier this year. And I just started crying. It was the first time I cried for 6 years. I mean, people were starting calling me heartless, like I had no feelings. And because things would happen, I'm like, okay, okay. Like I was just so immune to anything that would be sad to others. Like I just felt so hardened. And all of a sudden it was like this release of I could cry and really process what happened and deal with it and sharing the story still. Like I love how you share your story in the book and stuff still. Like as long as we're doing it and not just hashing out like poor me, but like helping others, I think is so important. Just, however you channel sharing the story. And each time I talk about it, it is more healing for me because I stuffed it down there so long because that's what we like to do. We like to stuff those feelings way down there, like, oh, that didn't happen. We're just gonna stuff it down there. But it's really hard to build a relationship, dating or function in life when you're haven't healed yourself and holding on to a bunch of wounds
Hmm.
and scars that, well, they're not even scars yet. They're still open wounds. They're just
Right.
open wounds, just that you're hiding with band-aids.
Yeah, I can't remember how that saying goes. Is you shouldn't bleed on the person who didn't cut you, and that's kind of like if you haven't healed, you're gonna be metaphorically bleeding on somebody else who didn't cut you. And that's kind of the hard thing too, and that's where if you don't deal and process some of the issues. A lot of things I did was journaling. I wrote it down and then I was able to kind of read it and I kind of poured my heart out just because it's how I truly felt. And that kind of helped me a lot in my process. And I think journaling for anybody, it's kind of the step of let me write this down and kind of go through the whole process and kind of the whole almost the whole grieving process, right?
Absolutely. Have you gone back and read any of them?
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to write a lot. I wrote a lot of poetry when I was younger. I was always a writer. Like I always liked to do reports, everything else. I was always really good at reports. Everything else I was okay at, good at. But when it came to like writing, I always loved to write. I don't know why. Um, it kind of was an escape for me. And kind of everything could go away for a little bit. I can write about something, and I had that feeling of accomplishment.
Because it's definitely a healing process. I journal all the time, and when I moved this summer, I sold my house after Kyle graduated because I couldn't afford it, and so that way I didn't have to work two jobs as much. But so when I was moving, I decided to sit and reread 2018, right when the news report, 2020 during COVID, everything that happened at the house, and you just start crying, like you're reliving it, but it's therapeutic. It's so good. It was so good that I wrote it down, and it was good that I went back and relived it to remember how far, really see how far I've come. I'm like, wow, gosh, that was awful. I'm sleeping on this air mattress, getting yelled at all the time. Um, to now in such a better, it's great to journal, not only to goal set. Like I tell people, it's like, okay, journal, like your goal doesn't have to be like 5 years from now after trauma happens. It could be one day, from now you're gonna only cry half the day. 1 week from now, 2 weeks from now, small goals to make you feel like you can do this, chunk it up and you could do it where you get to a 6 month goal and then a year goal. But journaling and really think, it makes you think of the process, really think about where your plan is. Because if you don't make a plan, if you wake up every day and will say, oh, we'll see what happens today, you're not going to get anywhere. You got to be intentional, get a calendar, be intentional, blocking off that time and making, the most of each day, the time management of each day to be purposeful for yourself, mentally, physically, spiritually, however you need to do it.
What was kind of the breakthrough moment when you realized that you were truly moving forward?
Kyle graduating really made me start looking more inside, like what is my life, like looking, planning out my life, like is this really going to be my life? And so going to those activities and meeting people and realizing that there was so many, I don't want to say we're broken, but we're broken
Mm-hmm.
people out there, because they're great people. I'm not saying like they're broken. I say I'm broken, and in some ways, I mean, we're all broken. No one is perfect. Like you say, no one is normal.
Right.
What is normal? Um, it just made me realize even more building that community of people like me and how their struggles, but look where they've come. And I've seen different progress by different people, and it gave me hope and clarity like, wow, okay, there is life after not even just marriage, but when your identity, your happily ever after changes in an instant, circumstances come that you have no control of, and you're like, oh, but that's all I knew. That was me. And you think life is over at that point, but then you're living for your kids, but then your kids leave, and then you're like, oh, now life is over. And not like I'm gonna take my life. It's just like I have no life, but I realized, oh no, I can have a life. There is a life. There are other people like me to have a life. And now I have met a really great man, was part of that singles group. And we have a great time together. We have experiences. And it's like, wow, like I have a life again. Like on the weekends, it's not just going to be at my computer till midnight. I mean, I signed up for an extra job at work and I called it my Sunday job. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't take any time off. I'm just always sitting at a computer. And it was really nice to just be around a community. I think that's the biggest thing. Like when people go through something, find the others that have gone through it too quicker than I did. whatever the circumstance is, but to have that support system is tremendous. And you can't have a support system, you can, but not a healing or transforming support system when it's people who are still in their identity and they don't know anything different. Until they've gone through something, they will never understand and be able to help you like someone who's gone through it.
Right. Well, it sounds like you're actually able to enjoy life a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So that's got to be a kind of refreshing change from where you've been to kind of where you're at now. So it's got to feel like you're kind of making some good strides for yourself personally, and finally starting to be able to start anew.
I think it definitely, I feel like if you look at the timeline in my life, I feel like there was veneer perfection and then it turned into authentic tragedy and now it's authentic happiness. Like I truly feel authentically happy. And my brother said that to Nine not long ago. He goes, "You always looked happy, but it's like you just not real happy. Like you just looked happy, like you were just going through the motions." And he goes, "Now I truly see authentic happiness on you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's what I call it too." Like, and it's a different feeling. And like I said, you wake up and you're not already wanting to go back to bed. You want to enjoy every minute of that day. And then you're getting closer or you're at where you need to truly be in life to really enjoy the life that was meant to be for you.
Yeah, we get one opportunity at it. Of course, unless you believe reincarnation or anything, but we have one opportunity at it, and that's kind of where, when you really sit back and reflect, you really want to be able to say, yeah, this was everything that I wanted to do in my life, you know.
Yeah. And stuff happens, but that doesn't mean
Mhm.
your life has to stop,
Right.
especially when you had no control of it. But just, yeah, it's just so important to realize there's still life. And especially being in my 40s, I was like, this is it. This is this is all I'm gonna be in my life. Just my purpose on earth is just to work and work and work, and that's all I'm gonna do until I die. I was like, that is no life.
Right, but well, unfortunately, that's kind of how everybody. That's kind of how life is everywhere. Everybody's got to work, fulfill, and then you get a retirement, and hopefully you get some time to spend, unless you're able to make an independent living, which is great for a lot of people, right? Um, for someone who's listening and it feels like their life was kind of rewritten by somebody else and their choices. Um, what would you want them to know about reclaiming their identity and their dignity and purpose?
Oh, that it's definitely never too late, and it should be a must. Like it should be a must that you reclaim it and you rebuild and don't think you can't. Like I think a lot of people think they can't, like, oh, or let's say if they weren't independent, like luckily I had a job where I could support the household. I mean, it wasn't enough I mean, I had to get another job, but I sold the house now and so downsized. So I can make a living. But let's say their life changes where their person who was the breadwinner, or the only income and like, oh, now I can't do anything. Like I have nothing. Yeah, you can. You can. It takes baby steps, but you find the right support system. There are people to help you get into the right place. And that's not even the best example. I'm just saying like people who think that they only can do something because their spouse helped them, or I mean, because that my thing is not only about a spouse portraying like or blindsiding like what happened to me. It could be their spouse passed away. It could be that a child got cancer, they got cancer, someone got sick in the family, a car accident where now you can't work anymore. Just something where your life changes instantly and that's all you knew. There's so much more. I mean, I would want them to know there's so many other options out there and help them figure out what do they have now? What are the resources they can get? Where do they want to be? And let's make a plan of how to get there with what they have. Like we always have way more than we're aware of,
Hmm.
but a lot of us, even me, I was in this tight bubble and I was like, no, this is all I got. and didn't even think about this singles group or, even any support group of, people who've gone through stuff. Like, I just felt like, nope, this is my world. I'm going to make sure my kids see that I'm functioning exactly the same when really I was not in that world anymore. I really did need to jump over to the other world.
Right.
Sounds kind of weird, but
No, it's kind of putting things into perspective, right? There's two different sides to every story. You had the side that happened, and now the side that you're living in. It's important to have that separation so you can see the what you went through and where you're at now. It kind of is two different worlds.
it's totally two different worlds. And you got to grieve it. You got to grieve it and lay it to rest and not keep wishing for something that will never come back. That world that I knew, that life that I knew at age 40 and before, will never come back. It can never be that way. But I can rebuild and, find a new husband, and we start doing parties in a new community group, that, or even now with the singles group is great. Just it's different than what I thought I would be at right now, but it's great. I mean, like there's still greatness in everything, and it's just nice to, have new experiences and new opportunities to meet people. And it makes you a better and more fulfilling person as well when you see things from everybody's side and just be a part of that as well. If you only live in one lane, you're not really going anywhere. You're not getting, not that you're not going anywhere, you're not seeing everything if you're just making the same loop. Let's say that.
Yeah, you're on autopilot. You're on autopilot. Just every day, just
Here's my friends, here's my work, here's my house, friends, house, work, and that's all you know. You don't even grow as an individual. Like I've learned so many new things being around these people, new people, and it's just been wonderful. I'm like, this is so great. So you got to get off the road and go sightseeing a little bit.
that's where a lot of people are very afraid of starting over. That is one of the probably most crippling things of anybody. Like, oh, I gotta start over, and that is like it's a daunting task. But doing that, you really kind of learn who you are as a person as well. You know, a lot of people are afraid to do it, so they stay in the same situation. You muscled through it, went through it, and you actually like, okay, I'm moving on. I'm starting over. Because
Yeah.
that's what you had to.
Well, say we want to stay in our comfort zone. If
Hmm.
it comes to weight loss, our job, our family, whatever, we want to stay in this nice comfort zone, and we don't want to be in discomfort. But until you're in discomfort, you're not growing. You're not transforming. I was thrown out of my comfort zone real quick. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, there. Guess what? Surprise! Why is there a cameraman at our door?
Did I tell you how the news reporters were at our door right
Uh-uh.
after the news hit? I didn't know this. When you're on the news reporters come to your house immediately because they want to hear your side of the story. We had to leave our house for a few days. Like we had to pick up the kids and go, and they had no idea what was going on at first, but we couldn't be in our own house because we had news people staking out the front lawn. Like our neighbors are like, no, they're still there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So so that was, yeah, that is awful and real.
Oh, it's got to be difficult because you don't have any privacy when you're trying to get through the mess, and you got everybody just sitting there with a microphone and waiting for you to come out the door or even take out the trash. You know, um, yeah, that had to have been like just unnerving,
Yeah, I never felt so pried into my life, like so
exposed, right?
scrutinized, exposed.
Right.
Yes, definitely exposed. And yeah, everything, I felt like people were watching me a lot more, just like, is she okay? But not in it's like they wanted to see what was going to happen. Like, am I going to break? Am I like,
Yeah,
what's going to happen? I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to be left alone.
yeah. Is Karen going to be on the next episode of Snapped? You're kind of just like, is she okay? Is she going to make it? Is she going to
She's
come
gonna kill her
back to
husband
us?
tonight.
Right.
I used to love Snap. I'm like, oh my gosh, all these women killing their husbands. So good. But yeah, just people need to get out of their comfort zone. It's hard, but that's where the growing's gonna happen. That's where the healing's gonna happen. You just have to do it. But I want people to know it is possible. And the other thing is people want it to happen overnight. It's like they fear that they fear of rebuilding their life when trauma happens. And so they stay stuck. And because we want everything to just, well, one, be okay, but like if we're gonna have a new life, let's just have it the next day. But it takes years. It takes years to really rebuild where you need to be. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's not gonna happen in 1 year, 2 years. I mean, how many years did it take you, you think?
Oh, I mean, it depends kind of what layer it is. Like forgiving my father for everything that kind of happened, um, kind of thinking about myself and forgiving myself for like overworking and burning myself out, um, uh, you know, about a family member who did some things to me that were inappropriate. The kind of you kind of go through that, and as I kind of peeled back the onion, I just like, well, that layer sucks, but I dealt with it, and eventually enough tears are shed and the onion's gone, but you still got to kind of go through and deal with it. But if you don't, it's just all those things. There's going to be like every once in a while something will hit you in left out of left field and be like, well, I got that feeling from that, I got that from that, and you just kind of have all these uh, containers full of garbage that just you just don't deal with. It just keeps stacking up.
Oh, I totally understand that. But yeah, it just doesn't happen overnight. I think that's where people have fear of rebuilding or trying to start new and they want to stay stuck and try to keep the life they have, which doesn't even exist. And I mean, I was one of them. I was like, no, we're going to keep this house in the community and work at the school and be involved with all these people and everything's going to be just like it was. We just don't have my ex with me anymore. It's just
Hmm.
us, but it's just not the same. But it takes years. It takes years for healing. It takes years to rebuild.
Yeah, you kind of like if you think about it, it's kind of like remodeling your whole house, right? You're not going to do it all at once. So you're going to take one thing, work on it, and then you're going to be like, okay, this one I feel is good enough. Now I'm going to go to the next part and work on it. And well, I got to deal with this area, and you still have to live in the house while you're fixing it, right? And that's kind of the analogy I like to use is, you know, just because you're fixing the kitchen doesn't mean you can't go in it,
Yeah, man, Brad, I love your analogies. I think they're great, especially that bleeding from someone, bleeding all over someone who didn't even cut you.
right?
It's so good.
I didn't make that up. It was like I just read that and it kind of sticks with you quite a bit that you bring into the relationship the baggage that'll probably ruin your relationship. You got to make sure you check that baggage.
Hmm. And that's what I've been processing so I could have, I mean, like the relationship with my boyfriend now, because year and a half, year ago, even 2 years ago, it wouldn't have happened.
Hmm.
It just wouldn't have happened.
It takes time. It doesn't matter what it is. It's still going to take time to process and be able to kind of work through everything.
Hmm. Just rebuild trust in relationships and really just making sure that I'm healed and really not as many triggers, with things happening. It's like, oh, so it's a process, but I'm so glad you have this so people can hear you're not alone. I want everybody to know you're not alone.
Yep.
Gosh, if you just need to talk or whatever, like this is a great place to do it.
Well, Karen, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your story, and it kind of struck me as probably one of the most devastating stories for a family because it was something that you didn't do, and you and your kids had to deal with it, right? And to have you kind of see where you're at now, and to see you kind of you dealt with it, you moved through the shit, and now you're kind of moving forward and kind of getting your life and your identity kind of where you want it to be, and that's what I think is probably one of the biggest takeaways for me is seeing that you're able to kind of start moving forward and creating your own kind of uh, non-normal life, right? You're just
Exactly.
doing what you can with what you have.
Exactly. And don't worry about what other people think, because I think I made a lot of people upset this last 6 months because they were used to me being the yes person all the time. And then I was like, no, I got to work out. No, I'm gonna, just do something for myself. And that's so important. Don't worry about if you're making other people happy. Make sure you're happy because you just can't be good to others if you're not taking care of yourself. And that's what I learned. I wasn't being what I really should have been to everybody, especially my kids, because I was just covering up with my busy happiness.
There's nothing like the present to make sure that happens.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Thank you, Karen. Look forward to hearing your future. Hopefully, things keep going the up and up. But you're a strong, independent person, so I'm proud of where you've come from and where you're at, and keep moving forward.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, Karen.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Some chapters don't give you clarity. They just ask you to keep going. Adaptation is often invisible. It's not the moment you decide who you're becoming. It's the stretch where you learn how to live while things are still unresolved. If this episode felt familiar, you're not behind. You're in the middle, and the middle matters more than we admit. Just a reminder, the stories and conversations in this podcast are for informational and personal reflection only. Nothing shared here should be taken as medical, legal, or professional advice. Always speak with a qualified professional about your own personal situation. Thank you for listening to No One Is Normal. If today's message resonated with you, you can find the book No One Is Normal on Amazon and Kindle, and explore more resources at www.bradhhill.com or www.nooneisnormal.co. Remember, you weren't meant to be normal, you were meant to be you.